And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, and everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
We all need to. Tyler has never been more correct about being calm more than right now. As around Rogers Arena, there is a massive prayer circle beginning with candlelight vigil beginning. And it just started at around 9 o'clock Pacific time when Thatcher Demko left the net from the Vancouver Canucks net to the dressing room, entering Casey DeSmith, who played the rest of the game and split a shutout with Thatcher Demko in a 5-0 win over the Winnipeg Jets. And still no word out of Rogers Arena of the condition of Thatcher Demko. So if Tyler's words of calm need any more resonating, this is the time to be calm. But welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks, as well as subscribe wherever you get your audio. Its trade deadline has passed. A lot of things didn't happen, but we are here to talk all things Canucks. How is it going, Sean? How are things out in the fine city of Calgary, Alberta? As I stretch for my water.
I'm doing all right. I'm a little under the weather. I was out celebrating my birthday last night, so I had a few drinks last night. So, but but we're still yes, good. Warming up here and looking forward to the stretch run with the playoffs. Hopefully Demko is okay.
Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well. Kevin, how about you?
I'm good. Are you holding a cat?
He just jumped into my lap just as you basically asked me that question. So yes, Bowie is trying to distract.
To hold a cat. I'm just pointing out, wow, you're holding a cat. Yeah, so we've got lots to talk about with the Canucks, and maybe we do start with where we are at with Thatcher Demko. He left the game. We don't really know what happened. According to Rick Hockett after the game, he said it wasn't serious, but how concerned should you be concerned? Where are you at as you woke up this morning springing ahead? And Sean being a little older and a little wiser now, maybe.
I'm not sure about wiser, Kev.
Okay. But older, okay.
Old. Yeah. I'd say it's still just want to find out wait until we find out what the issue is. Hopefully it's not too serious. They were up 4-0 when he left the game, so I think it could have also just been like, all right, I do have a little bit of something's bugging me. They're up 4-0. There's no point him playing through it at that point, especially when you're want him as healthy as possible going into the playoffs and the stretch run here. So I'm just hoping that it's something minor, and pulling him last night was more precautionary than anything else.
Yeah, I definitely echo the hopefully it's just precautionary and not anything serious. Like I think the group of us were a little concerned as far as how much he was being played as of recently. So like I feel like they should definitely be giving DeSmith a little bit more starts, especially during the stretch run, just so that way Demko can be as fresh as possible in the playoffs. Because like, let's be honest, Demko has a little bit of a history of having it like one major, or I'm not sure major with a capital M, but like one significant injury per season. And I guess this is the one that he's going to have at this point in the season. But yeah, let's hope it's not serious and that it ends up just being a little blip.
Yeah, it like the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, if I don't know if anybody heard Rick Bonus's comments after the game. He said it was the worst game that he's seen them play since he's coached the team. So this was not an effort that the Winnipeg Jets were going to come home with and saying, in terms of just, it didn't feel like the Jets were mounting any comeback. So like if there was anything to pull, this was probably the game to do it. You know, looking at the standings though, and the Oilers, you know, keep kind of hanging in there. They're 10 points back. They have 3 games in hand. So at least at this point, I don't like, I mean, you can't lose Demko now. I mean, the Oilers are kind of on a roll here right now. So I don't know if they're going to, I mean, I think they're going to take a run at first. Will they catch it? I don't think so. I think Vancouver's playing well enough, but yeah, I think, I wouldn't worry right now about Thatcher Demko, but hopefully I echo everything else. Hopefully it's not too serious at this particular point. And, you know, this is also an opportunity for an unrestricted free agent, Casey DeSmith, to give himself an opportunity to get a few games in. And he hasn't played great the second half. He got off to a good start, but I don't know if he's necessarily gained the confidence of the coach recently. So it's an opportunity for him anyway. So I'm kind of there's nothing to worry about. There's things to worry about, but just I'm in the wait and see mode, I guess, like everybody else. But the other course with all of this was the trade deadline happened. Of course, talked about the Flames' perspective. You can check that out yesterday. But the story what the Vancouver Canucks did do was they did nothing, and that included no trades. Of course, the names that were up for grabs, according to the insiders, was Jake Gensel, who ended up being traded Thursday night to the Carolina Hurricanes, Tyler Toffoli, who ended up being traded pretty early in the trade Friday morning to the Winnipeg Jets for a second and a third, and Jason Zucker got traded to the Nashville Predators. Where are you at? How are you feeling that the Canucks did not make a trade at the trade deadline? And also, before we go on, they did not sign Phil Kessel.
I would have liked them.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. What I think I would have liked Toffoli. I think he would have fit been the best fit for the team. Not only price wise on what he was traded for as opposed to Gensel, but he's also shown previous chemistry with both Pettersson and Lindholm. But the Canucks did all their shopping early. With the Zadorov trade, Lindholm trade, let alone go back even farther with the acquisition of Sam Lafferty. And then you've got Podkolzin coming up playing well. You've got Susie coming back after an injury. Dakota Joshua will be back soonish from his injury. There wasn't any sort of real, true, urgent need that the Canucks could have they needed to sort of bolster. It would have been nice to add another scoring forward, another top 6 winger, but it wasn't a true capital N need for them to do at this deadline, unless they found something that was sort of, I think, longer term, because that was the big thing with Gensel, Toffoli, and Jason Zucker. Those guys are all rentals. I don't think the Canucks were willing to move more assets out for players who potentially aren't with the team next year when they've already done it with Lindholm and Zadorov.
Yeah, I feel like that the Canucks definitely did everything that they wanted to do earlier in the season, and like from maybe not entertainment's not the right word I'm looking for, but like just from like an excitement standpoint, like you would have hoped that they would have done something, because like trade deadline day typically is like or at least in years past used to be like must watch TV and trying to figure out like who's going where for what price and whatnot. So like in that sort of sense, like it's a little bit of a bummer that the Canucks didn't really do anything. But like Sean said, the important work of improving the team, I think they did well in advance of the trade deadline. Not only at the start of the season and mid-season, but then just before the All-Star game with the Lindholm acquisition. So ultimately, I'm okay with the moves or lack thereof that they made, especially with both Arshdeep Bains and Podkolzin being brought up, just showing that like they are confident in the depth that they already have in the organization, so they didn't feel the need to go out and make maybe a brash or rushed decision just for the sake of doing something. So ultimately, I'm kind of okay with what they did.
I guess if Edmonton or LA did more, I might have been maybe you needed to do something, but I don't like LA really didn't do anything, and we'll get to Edmonton in a little bit here, but I also don't think it's worth giving up a guy that look, can we end this? He's not Nils Höglander's not a prospect anymore. He is a legitimate top 9 player in the National Hockey League who got his 20th goal on Saturday. So he's not a prospect, and he's not a guy that I think you should be training. And you're not trading Jonathan Lecker-Mackey. You're not trading Tom Wallander, and the prospect pool after that, I mean, maybe there's some people Podkolzin maybe is the one question, but it's not a really deep prospect pool at this point. Not to where Carolina is at for sure in terms of what they can give up for a Jake Gensel and keep for a Jake Gensel. Yeah, I think that they ultimately, sometimes the best trade that you make is the one that you don't. And I think this is a good case where the Vancouver Canucks were smart not to. And again, these are all rentals. None of it. No, Gensel didn't sign. Toffoli hasn't extended, and Jason Zucker hasn't extended. So we'll have to we'll see what happens in the off season with that. Yeah, I think the Canucks were smart to not get involved in any of these prices, and it really just sounded like it was. For a lot of teams, it just sounded like this was a bit of for the buyers anyway, it felt like a bit of an expensive market. So I think staying away from it and keeping your team where it is and see where you're at going through this, I think was a smart move. Anyone have anything to add to that, or?
Other than saying I agree, not much.
I'm going to let you two talk more about this than I am, because I have a bias. I have a bias towards Elias Lindholm. He's one of my favorite players, but his name did come up in trade rumors, and it hasn't been the greatest start. And so I'm going to let you guys kind of walk us through what you're seeing with Elias Lindholm. Were you surprised he was on the trade block, or kind of what did you see with that? I want to hear from you guys first before I chime in anyway.
I guess my question was,
first off, I don't think the Canucks were actually shopping Lindholm. I think they were actively listening.
Yeah, that's actually the same point I was going to get at. Yeah. It was the fact, I'm not sure if it was the fact that the Canucks were actively. Yeah. It was more the fact that they were willing to maybe pick up a phone call for a question about Lindholm, but it's not like they were being like, "Hey, we're not happy with him. Can we offload him with you guys?" So has it been the best start with the Canucks? Maybe not as well as everyone had hoped, given his pedigree and whatnot, but ultimately, as long as he doesn't pull I hope this is a fair comparison, a Marner and no shows in the playoffs. As long as he shows up in the playoffs to a degree and is a dependable guy, ultimately, I think I'm still okay with it.
Sean?
and that they were I think there's a couple things at play here with Lindholm. One is the fact that like he hasn't been traded mid season before. He's got a young family, and they didn't join him in Vancouver until just recently. So I think there might have been some personal life stress there that might have played into it. Also, they were putting him in different spots in the lineup, trying to find where his spot is. And looks like they've settled on him being the third line center at this point. And yeah, that's expensive to pay for a quote unquote third line center with Lindholm, but we saw how important that third line was going early on in the season. And he's basically a nice upgrade on Bluger. And you go into a playoff series with a third line centered by Lindholm with Garland and either Joshua or Podkolzin on the other wing, and you've got a matchup line. You've got a line that you can feel comfortable putting up against top lines in a playoff series, and you've got depth down that lineup, and pushing Bluger down into the fourth. Onto the fourth line just extends that depth as well. So I think you will see Lindholm play better as the season goes on here, and going into the playoffs. And I think we're already seeing that in the past little bit as well, because not like when the Canucks acquired Lindholm, they started having that little dip there that the Canucks had. Sort of just coincidentally happened early on in Lindholm after they acquired Lindholm, and I think part of why it's not been the best of start is more team based as opposed to player based. I think, in my opinion, and if you can, the chemistry that he's starting to develop with Garland, I think will be massive for the Canucks going forwards into the playoffs. So I'm not worried about where he's at. I think he's going to be very important for the Canucks going. And it's not, again, I don't think they were actually shopping him, but they were willing to listen, because this management team listens to everything, and we seem to not listen to Tyler and not get to not be calm when the Canucks listening about different ways to improve their team.
This year, just to go on this, just allow me to go on a bit of a rabbit trail here. This year, it seemed that there was a lot of just almost overreaction to things that were not happening. Like, just not a lot of context to things that were sent out. Like, and it's a good example with Lindholm, because I mean, I agree with you. I don't think that they were picking up the phone and saying we're going to trade Lindholm. I think that they were actively. I think people were the Bruins were on the phone, and I think teams were on the phone asking about Lindholm, and they were listening, like you do with everybody, right? I think general managers were doing a lot of due diligence to find out where players were at and trying to see what was out there. And I think this is in the entire process. Like, I'm sorry, I got to say this. It is not news that a team has called a team has called about a player. That's not news. That's the part of their job. Like, so, I don't like, it's just there was so much stuff that was out there that I think was taken so out of context, and social media was running with that was actual news that really wasn't news. I think Elias Lindholm has had a very difficult 2 years with the whole. He lost Johnny. He played on the best line of hockey 2 years ago with Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk. He lost both of them. He couldn't find that chemistry that he was supposed to have with Jonathan Huberdeau. He did find chemistry with Tyler Toffoli. Toffoli got 34 goals with him last year. And it's just, and then this year, the whole free agency situation, I think, just put a huge load on him. I think Ryan Huska put him into some very heavy roles where he wasn't necessarily the offensive guy that everyone expected him to be. And I think, once this playoff begins, it feels like he's got some chemistry with Connor Garland. So him and Garland, I think, kind of sit together, and then you kind of determine who plays with who after that. I think he will be fine, and it's a pretty potent four line. You compare that to everybody else here. You got the Oilers, depending on what they do with Draisaitl, who, if Knobloch needs to, and any other coaches need to, but the situation is dire, they've put McDavid and Draisaitl together. You've got that. And then the Oilers acquired Adam Henrique and then you still got Derek Ryan. The Kings have Kopitar, Danault, Dubois, and Vegas has Eichel. Thomas Hertl will rise from the ashes. Chandler Stevenson. I think it's a pretty formidable group that I wouldn't. I think you're fine. I don't know. I think. I don't. I think. Yeah, I feel like Elias Lindholm is being painted as a villain with a lot of context to him, and I think there's a lot of Flames fans doing it, and I'm worried that there's some Canucks fans starting to do that as well, and I think there's more to him than what is going on. And I say that as a fan of Elias Lindholm. He's one of my favorite players, but I think is he going to sit there and score a goal a game? No. Is he the offensive catalyst? No. But I think he's still going to help.
Yeah, and just like you were mentioning with like the whole if the Oilers want to team up Draisaitl and McDavid, acquiring him gives the Canucks a similar effect where having him as a third line center is awesome center depth. But then if they ever need to kind of make a super line or something in some form of desperation in the playoffs, you have that available in your arsenal to be able to do that. So ultimately, like I said earlier, I'm not ultimately worried about his performance so far, just as long as he is dependable and to a degree shows up in the playoffs.
Yeah. And he's been really strong in the faceoff circle. I mean, I think he was 80% again last night, and I think he's been their best faceoff guy since he's been there. So that's certainly, may not be the greatest stat in the world, but he's winning faceoffs, and he's doing this again. He's doing a lot of. I know the analytics don't show Elias Lindholm as this great player, and if you're going to look at a graph and watch Elias Lindholm, you're going to be disappointed. But if you're going to actually watch the actual hockey game and watch how Elias Lindholm plays the hockey game, he's one of the best players to play at positionally. He knows where to be on all ends of the ice. He's a very intelligent player. And I know that the graphists won't like to hear that, but he's a completely smart player. So that's kind of where I'm at with Elias Lindholm.
Even then, Kev, I just looked at his past 5 games, and his expected goals for percentage, according to Natural Stat Trick, is near the top for the Canucks compared to the rest of the Canucks in that 5 games. He's starting to turn that around as well. So I think that because he's finding that chemistry, and that third line is now going again.
Yeah.
So I think if we can have this conversation in another 5 games, another 10 games, and he could be an analytical darling by that point again.
Yeah. I guess you all just need to find someone who loves you like I love Elias Lindholm, I guess. I don't know.
Exactly.
I guess the one concern, though, with the wingers is you've got Pius Suter did score last night, so he ended a pretty long drought. But there's a few players with some long droughts. Teddy Bluger still hasn't scored in 13, and Ilya Mikheyev is now in the 31 games without a goal. I think, to be fair with Ilya Mikheyev, he's coming off an ACL surgery, and it's not even been a year, so I think he's trying to get his footing together.
And he definitely put in the effort last night, too. He had a bunch of shots.
Yeah, they're not going in for him now.
He's looked so much better the last few games. He's looked immensely better than he has for most of the season. So I think that's someone to watch. I think he could be coming alive close to the right time of year for the Canucks too.
Yeah. Hopefully he scores soon, though. It would be good for him, and
Yeah, get that monkey off his back for sure.
Yes.
What else was I going to say here? Just, I think, yeah, and I think defensively, there's not really. I think everything's kind of fitting into place here. I mean, I think Carson Soucy just adds so much more with them. There was a stat posted last night. Chris, you posted in the chat that in the first period, with Quinn Hughes on the ice, the Canucks shot the Jets 15-0 last night. Like, so the defense, like, so I feel like the Canucks are coming to the playoff stretch drive in a really good position here. So I feel like they are. I'll start here. I mean, maybe you guys can disagree with me on this or not, but I think that comparing everything else with the Pacific Division, even what the Oilers did, even what Vegas ultimately did. We'll touch on Vegas in an old separate point in here. I think the Canucks are a good distance ahead of everybody else in the Pacific Division. Like, I think the Canucks are here, and I think everybody else is here. And I know that there's a lot of people really high on the Oilers. I'm still not convinced. I still think there's just – I know that they're not allowing goals, and they look on Oiler right now. I still think the Canucks are still higher than them, in my opinion. Do you see that gap strength? Did it stretch? Do you feel it's close? Where are you at?
Like, especially compared to where the Oilers started the season, like, they have definitely closed that gap significantly. But do I feel like they're nipping at the Canucks' heels right now? No, I feel like there's still a little bit of a window or a gap or what have you in between us and the Oilers. And like you suggested earlier, Kev, like, they're really the only team that's kind of giving the Canucks a run for their money for the division title this season. So, yeah, to ultimately answer the question, I don't feel like I'm super threatened by the Oilers right now. But that being said, credit where credit is due. They have completely turned around their season and have shown that they are still legitimately in the conversation as Stanley Cup contenders.
I think it's close. Anytime you've got McDavid and Draisaitl as your the weapons your main weapons for a team offensively, it's going to be tough no matter how good the other team is. So I think the gap is definitely is not that big, in my opinion. That being said, I think the Oilers are due for another little, I wouldn't say slump, but maybe more of like a 500 level stretch here, and that's when I think the Canucks have just come out of that. And if they can, I think they will be. You said it earlier. You think that the Oilers are going to push for the division? I could see it, but what I think is going to happen is I think we'll see the Canucks sort of just gap out a bit here. Now that they've really found the discipline and the structure in their game again, and I think that's the difference that is going to make the Canucks. What's the best way of just saying this? Their structure and discipline that the Canucks are playing with right now, I think, is what separates them from the rest of the other teams in the Pacific Division, the Oilers and the Golden Knights and even the Kings. And the Kings play a very disciplined and structured game as well. But the Canucks have that extra level of top end talent that pushes them over the edges as well for the Kings. So I'd say the Oilers are close, though. I don't think the gap is as big as you have it there, Cav. But I still have the Canucks above them with at least a small gap.
Dylan thinks I'm silly. Well, I think you guys are silly. Mentioning Zach, I mean, and I do agree, Zach Hyman is going to be a 50-goal scorer this year, so I think he deserves a lot of credit. But I feel like one of the things that happened with the Canucks, even last night with the Jets. I mean, the Jets walked into Vancouver 3 weeks ago and kind of took it to them, and the Canucks found a way to respond. The Kings played the Canucks a couple of weeks ago. They took it to them. The Canucks found a way to respond and win. So I think the coaching staff has also been something, I mean, I think Rick Tocchet is it's at least a nominee for the Jack Adams Trophy right now, if not the hands-on winner. I mean, I think there's probably some other fan bases that will point out that there's a couple of other coaches in that situation, but we're talking, and that coaching staff has done a fantastic job, and that, he feels like he's starting to get this team playoff ready, right? It's, so I think it's that's kind of where I'm at. And I mean, yes, the Oilers are going to look playoff ready too. And I think it's going to be interesting to see who matches up with who. I think will be part of that process there.
Speaking of that, the fact that Vegas is a wild card team right now kind of has me a little nervous. Like, I would not want a first round matchup with Vegas.
Do we want to get into Vegas now?
I mean,
just open the can of worms.
We can.
Okay.
I mean, you already did there, Kev.
What's that? Yeah, I kind of already did. Look, okay, so they get Noah Hannafin. I think that's a really good add to add a pretty strong defense. I mean, it's a good defense. It's probably one of the. Is it the best blue line in the league? No, it's not. Is it one of the top 5 in the league? Yes, it is. I think the Rangers are a better blue line. I think Florida, actually, I would argue, is a better blue line if Aaron Ekblad is healthy. They got a criminally underrated defenseman there that, former Canuck, but still a criminally underrated defenseman that got an extension in Gustav Forsling. Brandon Montour, that's a really good defense. But anyway, let's stick with Vegas here. They sure didn't show a lot of compete against Vancouver this week. They have actually they got off to a really hot start, but as the season has gone on here, they've tumbled. They've been an under 500 team. I'm not entirely sure if, I know that Vegas is getting a lot of this rub because they're the Stanley Cup champions and they've been able to do all of these wonderful things and pull some magic. In terms of the team, I don't know if they're going to be I don't know if they're the team in the wild card I would be worried about. I mean, you worry because they're Vegas, but I'm not sure.
I feel like they're better than their last 10 games have shown. I think the stat that they showed on TV when we played them the other night was this is their worst slump in franchise history for them. So the fact that I'm not saying that they're on par with the Canucks as far as overall team cohesion and overall skill wise, they might be right there with us. But as far as just how the team is kind of running this season, this is not as dominant as we've seen Vegas. That being said, I think they're a lot better than what they're currently showing. So it's in that sort of mindset that I'm saying that I'm a little bit nervous about potentially facing them in the first round.
I don't think there's going to be an easy first round matchup, no matter who they play.
No.
When you look at Nashville, Nashville is a very, very well coached team. They've added ever since they had their Vegas trip canceled. They've been fantastic, and I don't think they should be overlooked.
Not going to the Sphere pissed them off.
It's the whole thing with Vegas. Yeah. But the thing with the Golden Knights is that you just worry about if they're.
Thank you.
I just are they going to be able to turn it back on? That's the question with the Golden Knights. Are they going to be able to turn it back on?
And are they actually going to be healthy? I know that people are I know the whole situation with Mark Stone has some people suspicious, and then you added Thomas Hertl, who's also injured. But there is legitimate injuries here. I mean, Jack Eichel hasn't been healthy this year. He's been in and out of that lineup the last little while. So that's the big question with Vegas is the health. And look, they needed 4 goalies to get to win the Stanley Cup last year. Like, is Aiden Hill the guy that can carry that torch? I mean, yes, he has a cup, but there's a lot of injuries, just a lot of questions. Are they scary because they've won the cup and they know how to win? Yes. Are they healthy? That's an entirely different question at this point. But it is like the West is going to be a battle in all 4 rounds. It is like, no matter who's playing each other, it is going to be a long, drawn out fight for every inch of the ice battle.
I think Dylan is wrong in saying that the Kings are an easy first round matchup. Like, they took it to the Canucks a couple games ago and they made us look bad. And like Sean mentioned earlier, they're a well coached team. They have a good structure to their team. So like, there really isn't an easy first round matchup. I guess I'm not sure who I want to face in that sort of, like, if we're thinking about it that way, like there's really no one you want to like cherry pick and be like, yeah, that's an easy get to the second round. There is no shortcut.
So if this was the PWHL and you had a draft, the opportunity to draft, which a lot of people have wanted for this, you wouldn't know who your first pick would be. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, like like I said, yeah, there really is no shortcut to the second round. Any team that's within like legitimate conversation of making the playoffs, like, because at this point, I think like the Kraken and the Flames are a little bit too far out of reach at this point that they could sneak into a wild card spot. So as far as the teams that are currently in playoff contention, there really isn't an easy route to the second round. I think any of those teams could give you fits along the way.
Yep, it's going to be tough.
The Kings would be an absolute slog of a series too. It would be, and especially with those like extra half hour later starts, the 7:30 Pacific starts for me in Calgary on Mountain Time, 8:30 starts and games ending at 11 o'clock. I'm just like, I don't want that, just selfishly.
And they're not. They don't exactly, like, if you're in for entertaining hockey, the LA Kings are not entertaining. Yeah, that's
they're the modern equivalent of what the Minnesota Wild were in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
they're boring hockey, but they are structurally sound.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the one thing Dylan just pointed it out, the question of the LA did not get a goaltender at the trade deadline. So that's the one. Yeah, I think that would be one advantage, definitely. I mean,
Talbot's been on a heater lately, though.
Yeah, Talbot gets on heaters and then Talbot gets cold.
True.
Trust me.
He's a bit of a roller coaster goalie for sure.
Yeah. So, and I just haven't trusted the Kings offensively. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
With the goaltending, I think that's if I can't speak today. If the Canucks have a healthy Demko going into the playoffs, that is their biggest advantage over any team that they're going to have outside of maybe Nashville.
Yeah.
Because when you look at LA, you've got Talbot, and as you said, that Aiden Hill and Vegas's goaltending. We've been saying this about Vegas for 3 years now. If they get the goaltending, they're going to be tough to beat. But it's still not. You're still not confident in saying that they're going to get the goaltending. And then you got, like I said, Nashville's got UC Saros, so that's sort of a wash there. And then Edmonton's got Stuart Skinner, and he's been up and down as well. So it's the goaltending is where the Canucks should have an advantage going into any playoff series in the West, honestly, because outside of maybe against Winnipeg, because I would take
Or
Demko
Dallas.
over Ottinger. I'd take Demko over Georgiev. I would take, but Hellebuck and Demko is a bit of a wash, and as well Saros is a bit of a wash.
I would disagree with Dallas, Chris. I think Ottinger is taking a little bit of a step back.
Yeah, I guess maybe I have more faith in Dallas as a team, but not necessarily if we're specifically talking about goaltending. Yeah, Ottinger is definitely a tier below.
Yeah. Like, he's still a good goalie, but I don't think he's in the Saros, Hellebuck, Demko right now. I would put, like, point is not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of learning lessons. It's going to be prepare for 6 or 7 game series no matter what, and we'll see what happens here. I think it's going to be, I suspect it'll be either LA or Vegas the way things are going at this particular point, so we'll see what happens with that. In terms of the Canucks, is there anything else that we need to speak about?
I think we're good.
All right. Let's talk about the rest of. Sorry, Sean, were you going to say something? Sean's good.
Nope.
Okay. I feel like Sean is like just a little bit behind us in terms of the connection.
Yeah, I feel like we have a slight delay with Sean today, I think.
Yeah. Normally that doesn't happen, but
I'm having an absolutely horrible connection day for some reason. Don't know why.
It's okay. Let's look at the overall trade deadline. I mean, we talked about Toffoli, we talked about Zucker, we talked a little bit about Genso, but kind of, I guess, I like to split this up in terms of the buyer group and the seller group. Was there anybody that really impressed you and said, wow, they made some really good moves?
Like, I'm not sure if there was any like A+ acquisitions. Like, I feel like every team was. I feel like this trade deadline was more making the best of a subpar class of people who were on the trade market. I feel like there was teams that definitely made significant efforts to increase their odds, but as far as like a single transaction, I'm not sure if there's one that really stands out to me as like that was a home run for that team.
Sean?
I liked what the Colorado did. I liked them swapping Byram for Middlestad. I liked some of the depth pieces they added. I think that made a lot of sense for them. And then I liked what New Jersey did as well. I think they made some smart moves, moving on from Toffoli, moving on from Vitek Vanacek, bringing in Capo Kakinen, as well as getting Jake Allen in as well. They made some smart moves, not just for this year, but going forwards.
Well, I think someone is going to have to inform Tom Fitzgerald that this isn't Walmart and you're not going for a deal. Like, you can't expect a deal for high-end prices here, okay? Sorry. I liked what Colorado. I think there's always that under-the-radar trade. I'm always fascinated by that under-the-radar trade that nobody talked about. And the one to me that is interesting, Brandon Duhaime from Minnesota to Chicago. That guy's a pretty good player, and I think he's gonna add something to that bottom six.
I think you meant Colorado, not Chicago.
I said Colorado. Did I say Colorado? Minnesota to Colorado. Brandon Duhaime. Yeah.
I think initially you had said Chicago and not Colorado. I knew what you meant.
Yeah. Brandon Duhaime to Colorado from Minnesota. That's kind of one of those under the radar moves, I think. I also liked what Nashville did. They didn't get anybody super. I mean, they got former Canuck Anthony Beauvillier. They got Jason Zucker. They got guys. But they added to the depth of the team. Like, they didn't necessarily buy or sell, but they just added to their identity of their team. I think with Bo and Byram, the one question that I will have is I hope he's healthy, because his career started with several concussions, and if he's healthy, I think that's a great add for Buffalo. But going forward, and that's a really good blue line with Power, Darlene, and Bo and Byram. It's a good blue line. Now, if the Buffalo Sabres can actually take that next step, that's great. What's that? Oh.
The only issue with the Buffalo acquisition of Byram is that all three of Darlene, Power, and Byram are left shots. So someone's going to have to flip over to the right side, and that doesn't always work well. So that's my one question mark about that move for Buffalo.
Yeah. Kind of like what the Canucks defense was like a season and a half ago, where we were very balanced on one side, or very off balanced to one side.
Yeah.
Well, you're still kind of,
and it's just until a defenseman proves that they can do it, it's tough to really feel confident that they're going to be able to play well on their offside.
I think Byram has played some on his offside. I don't know how much he's done, but I think he has. So, but yeah, I guess.
Sure. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to, I guess, briefly mention that if there was you were talking about like underrated acquisitions and whatnot. I think, given the season that Florida has had already, the fact that they were able to pick up Tarasenko and Okposo, they're definitely a threat again.
Yeah, that I listened to an Ottawa Senators podcast just ripping the Senators for that move, but he only wanted to go to Florida. You're kind of unfortunately, Ottawa was handcuffed with that move. And he's going to be Florida is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. There's no doubt about it. And adding Taras, I mean, they didn't even play Okposo yesterday, so they just tossed Tarasenko on the top line. The Panthers are scary for sure. That was an underrated ad, but so. The Rangers made a couple of underrated ads with Roslovich and Alexander Wenberg. Yeah, the East did a lot of little under the radar, other than the Carolina getting Jake Gensel. I mean, everybody else kind of just in the East did under the radar moves, where the West was like the big game shopping. Yeah. Yeah, and I think Winnipeg did
Carolina
really well.
Getting Kuznetsov's very intriguing as well.
That is also, that is, if he's healthy, my gosh, that you've got your second line. And the reason Carolina didn't beat Florida last year is because they couldn't put the puck in the damn net. It's like there was a lot of portions of that series that they were dominating Florida in terms of possession and zone entry and all of that, but they just couldn't score. That was ultimately it. And then Matthew Tkachuk goes down, has one shot in the game and scores, and they live happily ever after. Yeah. I guess in terms of the sellers, Calgary had the loaded hand going into this with all the UFAs. So I think they kind of, I think they did as well as they could, considering all of that. But I think Montreal deserves some credit. I mean, first of all, they got a first-round pick for Sean Monahan, and they got a first-round pick acquiring. Not only did they get a first-round pick acquiring Sean Monahan from the Flames, they got a first-round pick in trading Sean Monahan. I think that's a huge win for them. They got something out of Jake Allen. They were able to move Joel Edmondson out. I still think Montreal, they've got some work to do, but they're on the stretch there. And other than that, like, New Jersey was able to get a few things done, but in terms of sellers, probably other than Calgary would be Montreal. Like, Arizona went around trying to sell people try to get a first round pick for Matt Dumba, and came out having to give up a draft pick and acquiring a fifth. So I don't think that was while New Jersey thought this was Walmart, I think Arizona thought that this was what's a high-end store?
Saks Fifth Avenue. If we're going to the extreme.
Arizona went to the NHL. Matt Dumba, this is Saks on Fifth. We want a first-round pick, and went, oh, this is Matt Dumba is actually in Value Village. Is a Value Village pickup, not a Saks on Fifth pickup. Okay, learned that lesson.
Talk about a fumble on asset management.
Yeah, holy smokes! What happened to him? Like,
I thought he was supposed to be pretty decent when he was in Minnesota, and yeah, apparently he's dropped off in Arizona.
Yeah. Oh, what happened to him?
Similar to Shane Gostisbehere, I think just when you don't have the right spot for him as being an offensive defenseman, and what else is he doing?
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, it's an interesting trade. It was an interesting trade line. I know that there's a lot of Leaf fans that are up in arms with what happened, but there was not a lot of cap space. Also, that just made a lot of things a lot easier. Like, you can't. I mean, the salary retention prices were probably a little cheaper than I think everybody kind of expected, but there isn't a lot of room to do a lot of salary retention. But maybe we should talk. Let's talk about LTIR here and kind of. Dan and I chatted about this yesterday, and I asked the question: is Vegas cheating? And he said that's not really the fairest question. And maybe so. I'll ask this: is Vegas playing within the spirit of the rules?
Yes, I have no issues with what Vegas has done. When the LTIR issue was really pissed me off was Tampa, when they were requiring players who weren't going to play just to help them work the LTIR system. That's not within the spirit of the rule. Having the issue with Vegas is just that it happened to be coincidentally the timing of the annual Mark Stone injury helps them acquire players. So it is what it is. It's not. I think it's well within the spirit of the rule, as opposed to Tampa, who, like I said, went out in the offseason, acquired Brent Seabrook and other players that weren't going to play for them at all to help them work the LTIR system. That wasn't within the spirit of the rule. I think that's what Vegas is doing right now is.
Yeah, I have to really agree with Sean on that one. Like, as long as you're not getting these contracts that are basically these players are never going to be playing again, whether it's a Seabrook or a Pronger or what have you. Like, as long as it's a player that legitimately can come back and play that season, I ultimately believe it's within the spirit of the rule. Like, is it going to cause fireworks on social media? Of course it is, and it has, and it will likely continue to do so. But as far as if we're having a conversation on whether it's within the spirit of the rule, yeah, I'm with Sean on that one.
Yeah, I'm on that too. I don't have a problem with it, but I also, Dan and I were discussing yesterday if this rule needs to somehow change.
I think Friedman mentioned that it's going to be part of a governor's meeting agenda, if I remember correctly.
Who said that? Sorry?
I think my memory could be off, but I think I want to say like Friedman said a couple weeks back that it's likely to be on the agenda for the next governor's meeting. Maybe I'm off base here. I just for some reason in my head that popped in.
And again, if you're going to make any changes to the LTI rule, I think it's to find a way to keep basically retired players who still have a contract being traded around as assets for LTIR purposes. I think if you can get rid of that, that's the only thing you really can do, because half the league's in LTIR right now. That's the thing. It's like, the Canucks are. Like, they've got Pullman. They've been dealing with the Pullman injury. And it's actually not ideal for a lot of teams. But when you are able to, when players are able to come back in the playoffs, that's when you see the value. So I think you have to get there first. If Vegas continues to struggle here and misses the playoffs, like, they don't get the benefit of having Mark Stone come back. And even if Mark Stone does come back, he's coming. I think the estimated recovery time for a ruptured spleen is 2 to 5 months. Like, he may not even come back.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I'm a little bit. Oh, what? Sorry.
No, go.
The one thing I'm really not comfortable with is this claim that these players are not injured, because it's like Mark Stone. I know it's an annual Mark Stone. It's the Mark Stone injury, but he's legitimately been injured the last 2 or 3 seasons. We even had this discussion last year, Sean. You, Dan, and I had this discussion about Mark Stone's injury last year, like, and how much he was going to end up playing this year. I mean, I don't like these players are injured. We know that. Like, I know, but I understand how it looks, but that these are legitimate injuries, and I think that has to be put into fact. I think the 2 things that Sean, you talked about the idea of, if you're a retired player, you can't be traded. The other one is, if you're not ready to play by the end of the regular season, I mean, the other rule is, should you be allowed to play at least at the start of the playoffs, at game 1 of the playoffs, I think was the other question. And I don't know how you can govern that, but that's interesting to me.
Like, kind of similar, like, have a similar sort of framework around, like, how you have to, like, the trade deadline and, like, eligibility for being able to play in the playoffs. Because, like, technically there is no real trade deadline, in the sense that you can still make trades after the deadline. It's just that they aren't eligible for that season's playoffs.
Yeah.
So, like, having something within, like, that sort of spirit of the rule or framework, or however you want to word it, like, something along those lines, like, I think might be within reason.
Yeah. Or there's some sort of, like, the NFL has cap penalties for moves as well. I mean, that might be something to look at as well. But I don't know. I think the Vegas, ultimately, with Vegas, they are the biggest heels in the NHL right now. And love them or hate them, they are providing entertainment, which, I admire them for trying to do some different things. Is it going to actually work? I'm not entirely sure, but they're sure the hell entertaining us. And, they're trying to do the objective here, which I feel like only 6 teams are trying to do in the National Hockey League, which is win the damn Stanley Cup. I thought this was what we're supposed to do. Are we trying to win the Stanley Cup here? I feel like a lot of fan bases want to win the first round draft pick or draft lottery. I think some people want to win that. It's the actual thing is the Stanley Cup, right? So I give them credit for trying, but does it work? I don't know.
There's too many teams in the mushy middle and at the bottom that convinces fan bases that, yeah, you need to tank before you can basically rise to the top again.
Yeah. And me and my love for tanking. Yeah. I guess just the final part of the trade deadline, I guess, to talk about here is what did we ultimately think of the Thomas Hertl trade? Because there were 2 perspectives. A lot of people were like, what in the living hell is San Jose doing? Not only giving up Thomas Hertl, but giving up draft picks for Vegas to take him and only retain 17% of the salary. But I did hear other people say that this actually could help San Jose in the long run, getting this contract off their bases. Where I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know where I'm sitting with Thomas Hertl here.
Like, I think I'm fascinated by the deal, but I'm not sure if I have, like, a hard opinion on my thoughts regarding it. Like, because I think I don't fully maybe understand the motivation behind at least on the San Jose end. Like, obviously, Vegas is trying to load up and win the Stanley Cup, like you were saying. But as far as, like, the motivation of, like, yeah, like, obviously the 17% is due to that's all, like, Vegas got right up to the $0 remaining on their salary cap, and they couldn't afford to take him otherwise. So the salary retention had to happen at that percentage point. But as far as, like, the giving up picks and just getting him off the books, like, they don't have huge salary cap obligations moving forward. Like, yeah, Hurdle's on a long contract, and you can question the timing of why they made that contract decision when they did for that long. But, like, what San Jose is trying to do long term, as far as their long term vision of the team, like, I'm not sure what to think about it.
The amount of dead cap that San Jose has, because they're retaining on 3 contracts now, so they can't retain on any other contract going if they're going to make a trade going forwards. It is kind of crazy because they're retaining on Hurdle and Brent Burns' contract, as well as Erik Karlsson's contract. They can't retain for another 2 seasons on any deal now, because Burns's is up in 2 years. Karlsson's contract is up in 4, and then Hurdle's is up at the end of the 28-29 season. So that's my concern. I think getting a first round pick and a former first round pick in David Edstrom is good. Not sure why they felt they needed they giving up having to trade away a couple third round picks, but I think turning over the roster in San Jose is Mike Grier's number one job right now, and it's getting rid of the old guard and bringing in the new. Couture is injured. I don't think he's not going to play for the rest of the season. You've got Vlasic, who's got 2 more years after this year as part of that old crew, and then after that, it's pretty much a very young team, and a team that's going that they need to add. They're just changing it over. I think that's literally what that was. It was a trade and a trade for the sake of a trade more than anything else.
It's to finish the scorched earth that is the San Jose Sharks. That's ultimately it. And this is going to be a 10-year rebuild. Like, honestly, it's going to take years for San Jose to get back to where they relatively are, because they got the 3 roster spots. You've got a lot of young guys that are they're going to take 5-6 years to get into NHL ready. They've got, like, one guy I think has got some talent there that intrigues me in Fabian Zetterlund. There's not a lot else. Maybe William Eklund can be something. But this is draft and develop. Like, if you are part of Tankathon, I guess you're going to have to see what the San Jose Sharks are going to do, because they're going to be the litmus test, because this is the true scorch the earth to the bottom of the actual barrel and see what you're growing out, because this is exactly what the San Jose Sharks are doing. And in short term, it just feels like a lot of pain for
them in
San Jose.
Chicago.
Yeah, and Chicago, yeah. Oh, Chicago, yeah. Short, yeah. Oh, yeah. That is, like, bottom of the barrel. So if you're watching, if you're on Team Tank, Chicago and San Jose are going to be your litmus test, because these 2 teams are truly doing what a lot of people think works. So we're going to see what happens.
True.
Yeah. The final thing that happened was last night, and it's too bad Tyler isn't here, because Tyler is a referee, and it would have been very interesting to get his opinion about what happened. John Tortorella got on a night that the Tampa Bay Lightning honored their 2004 Stanley Cup championship team. They put Brad Richards and Dave Andreychuk into the Tampa Bay Hall of Fame. The whole crew is up drinking. I maybe partying with Sean. Were they partying with you? Were you in Tampa Bay last night, Sean? Just hanging out with the 2004 Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay gets up 4-0 before halfway through the first period. There is a cheap shot on a Flyer player, and a Philly player gets a 10-minute misconduct. Torts is kicked out. Torts says, basically, pardon my French, for those that are new here, fuck no, I'm not fucking leaving. Forget it. Screw you. I'm not all of this. It was quite something. And then finally, Wes McCauley went over and said, and then Torts finally left. But what a crazy, that wasn't the only crazy scene last night, but what a crazy, or yesterday, but what a crazy situation. And I think the ref, I'm kind of on the ref side here, not buttering up to Tyler, but I think Torts this was a long term in terms of the game that he was yapping. And I think Wes McCauley had enough, and he was right to throw Torts out of the game. Hunter, I watched the game, and Torts was completely out of control, and I think he did the right thing. I don't think that this was sensitive ears. I think that this was long time ears of like, you know what, I'm not going to put up with this shit anymore. Get out of here.
Yeah, when I put the question to Tyler in our group chat yesterday, he succinctly answered in the sense that, like, yeah, they sat down all the coaches last offseason and said, there's a certain line we're drawing as far as abuse of the officials, and if you cross that, you're getting ejected. Clearly, Torts crossed that line, and they decided they weren't going to have it anymore. You definitely could say that Torts was being indignant Torts in the sense of like, fuck no, I'm not leaving, force me to. But no, he eventually did leave, but yeah, just Torts being Torts.
Yeah, not sure what. Not sure I can add anything else to that. I think it's just yeah. When you berate an official like that, they have every right to toss you. Leafs coach. Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
Sheldon Keefe. Yeah. Sheldon Keefe got ejected early a couple of weeks ago.
Sheldon Keefe, yeah, he got kicked out of the game earlier this year. Yeah, so it's unfortunate. I have a very hard time. I used to be really, really tough on like refs, and like a lot of people are. Now I'm just like I guess it's because of Tyler. Thanks, Tyler. But
Tyler humanized
a lot
refs
more
for
like understandable with them. Damn it, Tyler!
Damn you, Tyler!
They see, yeah. It's just there's no need for that. Honestly, as entertaining as it is to us as viewers, there's really no need for it. All you're doing is making an ass of yourself when you berate officials like that,
and docking your own pay.
Yeah, he's going to take it fine.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to make sure we talk about, I forgot about this, but I just remembered this. But this has to be talked about as well. The Edmonton Oilers Buffalo Sabres game, Saturday afternoon. Buffalo scores, celebrates, gets off the ice, and then they do the review and determine that this is the goal doesn't count because it's offside. Now Buffalo ends up winning the game in the shootout anyway, but I know, Sean, you're not a fan of review, but at least if you're going to do the review, let the players stay on the ice before you do that. That's a messy situation. And what if Edmonton ended up winning? Like, I'm sure, okay, it's the right call, but how this was handled, that's like are we going to have this happen at the Stanley Cup? We're awarding the Stanley Cup. Okay, wait, hold on. We looked at the play. It's offside. Sorry. Give the cup back to Gary Bettman. Everybody get off the ice here. We got to replay it. Like, are we going to get that to that? Like, there better be, like, you better be more organized than that. That is, like,
It'll never get to that extreme, but I do see your point. I missed this happening. I basically just saw it being referenced, but so I'm not sure like how egregious the timing was on this. But if the game ended, and the players left the ice, like clearly the war room took their sweet time to make this decision. Like, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it as far as like
literally was by they were offside by a hair.
Yeah, but letter of the law absolutely was offside, but like,
but credit to the Sabres PR team. They had some fun with that after winning it.
Go ahead, Sean.
And to be fair, the Oilers lost twice yesterday, so it was a good day.
Yes. Anytime the Oilers can lose once or twice, it's always So they're technically
Don't give them the extra point. Dock that extra point. They lost twice.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the last thing we should probably cover, because I feel like we're kind of getting to the end here, the last thing we should probably cover is the fact that Lindy Ruff got fired and former Canucks coach Travis Green, interim head coach.
Yeah, I think this was a long time coming. This New Jersey team just didn't seem to have the traction. I think they, as a team, were just getting frustrated with their goaltending, in which they obviously tried to address either by trying to go to Walmart, trying to get Walmart prices for Jacob Markstrom, or try to deal in the media with Jacob Markstrom and try to kind of see if they can get Calgary to do whatever they were supposed to do. But ultimately getting two new goalies, Jake Allen and Capo Kakinen, that they're obviously, this is something that they're going to have to address. But this team also just looked very immature, right? Like, I just feel like this team, like, a lot of people were really high on the Devils last year, and like, they get Tyler Toffoli, and everything was supposed to look great, and they were on their way up, and the youth hit them, and it was last year too that they had the start of the season was they had the fire Lindy chance. So I mean, I think Lindy Ruff was kind of hanging on a little bit slowly, but this probably should have happened earlier. And I think New Jersey has to come away the most disappointing team of the season overall.
Yeah, as far as expectations at the start of the season compared to where they're at now, they probably were the biggest drop of the season for sure.
Yeah, New Jersey, maybe Ottawa and Buffalo. People expected those two teams to take a step.
Yeah, Ottawa's in an awful situation too. I mean, you lose to San Jose not once but twice. You lose to San Jose. I mean, like, who do they think they are? The Calgary Flames? I'm sorry, I had to do that. Yeah. So
I think I saw a stat that Ottawa has not beat a Western Conference team this season.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Do you realize, I'm going to say this again, do you know how many playoff games Brady Tkachuk has played? Sean, you used to say B is for better. He has played 0 playoff games. That is
not his fault.
I know, but that is a form of hockey tragedy.
That's criminal, yeah.
It is hockey crime that Brady Tkachuk has not played a playoff game. Like, his most memorable playoff moment is chucking a brew at the Saddledome. We usually end with one last question, so I don't know if anyone has one.
I don't have one. I think Sean mentioned that he might come up with one.
I tried.
Okay, I have one. I do have one.
My brain is off today, so
all good. Mine is this is the one. Usually we do some fun personal one, but this is just watching the Pittsburgh Penguins today. It made me think of this. Is Sidney Crosby a Pittsburgh Penguin next year?
Just given the career he's had, I don't see him like it's happened before with like Naslund and like other like Hall of Fame echelon sort of players, but for Sidney to be in a different jersey besides Pittsburgh just feels wrong. Like I feel like with like the Patrick Kanes of the world, like we had a little bit of, okay, this seems like it's inevitable that he is going to go somewhere else, but I don't know. For me specifically with Sidney and the Penguins, seeing him in another jersey just doesn't feel right.
I think Sidney will give Dubas the offseason to figure things out. And if they're in a position that's similar to where they are now, going into the deadline next year, he will be the most sought after rental of all time because his contract is up after that next season. So I think it will be that's what's gonna happen. If he is moved, it'll be at the deadline or close to it.
And it really makes it interesting in the sense that, like, unlike Ovi, who seems to have really taken a noted step back this season, like Crosby is still good. He is still throwing that team on his back, like maybe not as often as he used to, but he still has that capacity to throw the team on his back and get dubs. So, Sean's idea of like being the most sought after rental of all time, that is a fascinating thought to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sad to watch him right now. Like he's putting everything he can into this team, and they just don't have it in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, Vincent Desharnais just took like liberties with Sidney Crosby, and it took 3 minutes for a player to come run and find and help him out. Like that is wow. I just like the Pittsburgh Penguins. What's happening with that is sad. So that's why I asked that. I'm like, I wonder. Like, I know, I know that people were being outlandish with this idea, but I'm like, just watching him. He seems really sad, and they did not respond very well to the Jake Gensel trade. So
yeah, because what was his response? Like, I don't know how I feel about it.
Anyway, we will leave it there. Thank you for everyone that joined us today. We had a pretty good gathering on this fine Sunday afternoon.
Lively chat, yeah.
Lively chat. So welcome everyone. Hit that likes button. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us. How do we follow you on the social medias?
I am BeardyConnect03 on X/Twitter.
I am at Schneids on all the social medias.
Tyler is TNOBLE, and he, of course, you can find him on the social medias. Devin, who's out selling peelers right now in Peterborough, Ontario. Actual kitchen peelers, by the way.
Yeah, vegetable peelers.
Vegetable fruit peelers. You need to be careful there. Gordhouse09. I am KEVOLE on all the social medias. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Eventually, we'll get on Threads if you're watching from there. There's that. But thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will be back next week. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.